that's brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. This is awesome, guys. It's the 5150 show. TikTok, it's time to rock. The Van Halen show from Down Under is here for our fortnightly fix to talk about EVH stuff, bits and pieces, what's been happening during the week. My name is Andrew. I'm here with Brad on the top tier. We've got Hos down there on the bottom. We're streaming, guys, obviously on our YouTube channel. We're streaming on our Twitter account, and we're streaming on our Facebook group, 5150 show. So check us out there, guys. It'll be really, really cool if you can join us there at some stage. We've got some social media accounts on the bottom there happening. I think I've just about done my job now. I can sit back and drink Cokes, push some buttons, and I'm going to pass it on to Brad, the backdoor man, 5150. All these names we're getting. My gosh. Brother, how are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, been busy as usual, but always good to be busy and you know, in the zone rather than sitting on our butts doing nothing. So I've been playing a bit of guitar this week, did some rehearsing, all sorts of things. Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, been good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hos, what have you been up to, brother?
All good for me. Things have been starting to get busy again in the studio at home, and you know, gigs for January, February, March are all starting to get booked for next year as well, which is great. Finally, the music scene sort of you know, coming back and bouncing back, which is good in Melbourne town, and that's about it. And then you know, now that my Corner Hotel Van Halen gig is locked and loaded for January the 25th, then there's obviously plenty of opportunity for me to start preparing properly for that as well. So yeah, been pretty busy.
Awesome. I look forward to talking more about some of these live gigs with you and Brad, obviously, too, next year as we do this show and the British Electric Blues show, because, you know, one of the great things that we do on this show is that we're lucky enough to have musicians who gig. Even Simon Williams on the Sunday show with us is, you know, gigs with a duo. I jam with a couple of guys. So, you know, besides talking about music, we actually try and play a bit. So I look forward to sharing those experiences. Later on, we forgot, though, one of you guys in about 10, 15 minutes is going to have to do the shout out. So any volunteers?
Well, how about Brad, if you take care of the shout outs in 10 minutes, I'll do the ones at the end of the show. How about that?
Awesome.
Sounds great.
Awesome. But in the meantime, we were looking forward to a great show. We're going to talk about some bits and pieces. Hos has got a couple of surprises and secrets to share with us. Is this a good time to talk about secret number one? Someone hiding, lurking in the green room. Is this a good time, bro?
I think so. I think we do have someone lurking in the green room. Hey, just before we bring him on, are you guys hearing a delay still, or is that just me?
No, you're fine, bro. I can hear you. You're all good.
Oh, so the delay's just on my system then. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
That's no problem. Okay, we have a very special guest. We're going to talk today all about guitar tone, and obviously pretty specifically Eddie Van Halen guitar tone. The amps, the Marshalls that I've grown up and loved, the Marshalls that Brad's grown up and loved, and the two of us have. I see Keith Campbell saying here's delay, and I do too. So how do we? Okay. How can we get rid of that? Maybe let's see. Hey,
that's
frustrating. Hey Brad, I know your house can be pretty echoey. If you shut your door, maybe it's bouncing off the kitchen or something, you know.
You just gave the.
So, look. See, now that Brad's, I'm not getting the echo now. So
no,
Brad's fault.
You're fantastic. Yeah. How's that? TikTok time to rock.
How's that? Is that better? Oh yeah, that's better.
Oh wow.
He hasn't unclicked his thing yet. Oh yeah, that's way better. Okay.
Is he
cool?
Is he unclicked?
Yeah. I think so. Steve is saying turn the chorus pedal down. I agree. It's too much chorus on the voices. So if we can get rid of that. So sorry, let me get back to my introduction then. So Brad and I and our love of Marshalls actually share a person in common who has been very good to us over the years and who is one absolutely talented guy He's been working around. He doesn't just work on amplifiers. He does front of house and he does repairs and all sorts of things. He works with Mark Lizotte, who a lot of people would better know as Diesel, and does front of house for him. And I am very, very fortunate to have this man doing front of house for my corner hotel show on January the 25th. But more than that, Brad and I have known him for a long time, and he has bent over backwards to make sure that both of us are super happy with our guitar sounds. And his name is Warwick Newman, based here in Melbourne, Australia. And we better know him as Woz from Tone Revival Engineering. And maybe he can help us deep dive on some of the mysteries of the old Marshall Plexi.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Wazza. Here he is, all the way from down under. Good to see you, brother.
Hey. Hi, guys.
How you doing, fella?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Awesome. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I know you're flat sticks, and it looks like you're in your car right now, yeah?
I'm in a work van at the moment. I'm getting paid to do this.
Okay. You're in the work van. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, I know you don't have too long, but so I guess one of the questions that I would be most curious about, because you've worked on my Marshall Plexi on and off for, 10 years or something? Would it be that long?
Yeah.
Okay. And you, even before I bring it to you and say, oh, I'm hearing this, or I'd like you to do more of that, you seem to have a pretty good clue on what that means, like electronically. So like maybe you could share with everyone, especially because I'd be curious as well, like what are like the first 1, 2, or 3 things that you think really help improve an old Marshall sound?
Good question.
We might have lost him. I think he's frozen.
Sorry, I think my interweb's freaking out. I'm in the car.
That's okay.
All right, so I know what. Sorry, I missed that last bit of the question.
That's okay. I was just saying, like, so if Brad or I were to bring an amp and you would like do like, what's your first 1 or 2 instinctive things that you would tweak?
Oh, look, first I'll plug into the amp and play it.
Yep.
And make sure it's a working amplifier, sounds right. A lot of the times people complain about stuff and they're running on dead tubes or, so first you kind of get it so it sounds like a Marshall.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is to actually get the person to play, yeah? Because all your fingers do different things.
Yeah.
So that's the most important thing, really, is suiting it. It's like being a tailor, I tailor the amp to the player.
Yep. Now that makes perfect sense, and I think I can speak for a whole bunch of people. But one of my favorite things, and that just tickles me every time, is when I would bring my amp to you and you would have me there plugged into it while you just had the innards of the amp upside down on your bench, and you'd be like pulling in and out different caps and things like while we're playing. And that is such a fascinating experience for a guitarist,
Oh yeah, it makes all the difference, Like I kind of look at an amplifier like you would mixing, like, because I'm a sound guy as well. It's all so different capacitors, different tubes. It's like using different compressors and outboard, The preamp section is like the front end of your recording. The output stage is like the mastering, sort of.
Yep.
So, and it's just, like you change EQs, different compressors do things, so do different components.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then, how important, because really people talk often quite separately about the preamp stage of a Marshall to its power stage, which I guess involves both the power tubes, but also the transformers, right? So with a Marshall that you wouldn't necessarily be timing in the way that you would like an old Plexi, then where do you think the butter zone is for like how hot you run the master volume on an old Marshall so that you get the power, the mastering section, as you call it, like, so that's kind of cooking as well,
Well, say like on an old Marshall, like a 4-inputter, there's no master. So you just crank that pre, and like The difference is, I think preamp distortion is easier to play with and easier to control.
Yep.
Whereas when that power section's distorting, you get that pentode distortion. It's a more live sort of distortion and harder to wrangle. Like it's like, whoa, you know.
Yeah,
the good one.
The good one, yeah. And look, from way back in the day, I think it was like the mid '90s when I was recording with Virgil Donati, and I bought my first Plexi, which was just the reissue, and it's actually the same one that you've got in the workshop now. The one that you know very well.
Yep.
I remember the first time I took it home and I had a Marshall power brake and I plugged it into that and I just grabbed everything and dimed it. And look, it wasn't perfect, but straight away, that pick attack that I'd listened on so many rock records, there it was. And I think that power section that you're talking about, like the mastering section, so to speak, is really like a massive part of the attack, that transient on the front of a note. And I think that if you don't have that, if it's all preamp, you're right, it's a very, very different sound, actually.
Totally. And also a Plexi is a very, it's a non-complicated amp. So there's not a long distance from your guitar being plugged in to the speaker.
Yep.
Like, that's the thing. When you start adding lots more gain, there's more gain stages. Every gain stage flips phase, blah, 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 blah. It's a lot more immediate going straight into a Plexi.
Yep. I agree. And I think that's why people talk about when you plug into an old Plexi, a non-master volume amp, it for anyone that hasn't done it, it's like quite a changing experience because you're sort of almost wrangling and wrestling with it like a lot more. You know, it's not as smooth and compressed and kind of defined and
it's not nice.
Yeah, and obviously to get it really so that it is workable, it's really loud. So you're obviously wrangling with that as well. The volume that most people are not used to straight up, you know.
Yep.
And what about you, Brad? Because I know that you've modded some of Brad's Marshalls. What kinds of things have you done to those? Because they're obviously very different to my non-master volume, right?
Yeah, well, Brad's is a slash reissue, isn't it? Yeah, so that's a 25th anniversary. Now, the 25th anniversary was a very different amplifier for Marshalls, especially in their tone stack. Sorry, I'm going to keep moving around because I'm holding it with my hand. So
That's okay.
I'll keep floating. Whoa! Anyway, so the 25th anniversary has a really different tone stack to it, completely different to any other Marshall. Yeah. And then we won't say who did it, but Cookie had it modified before. Yes. And that person basically just dropped in a front end from a rectifier.
I see.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it was a Mesa Boogie rectifier sort of vibe, Soldano-ish, but it was directly lifted from a recto.
Yep.
And then that was feeding the tone stack onwards of Cookie's amp. But it's, well, at that time you were kind of going for that slash sort of vibe thing.
Yep.
And a rectifier definitely is not that
gotcha.
at all. So, we kind of ripped that out and rebuilt it to a more Marshall-y. I think your one, we kind of based a bit more on that Frank Levi, Caswell, 39, SIR 39 slash sort of vibe thing. Loosely based it on that.
Yeah. When we did the mods on it, I can sort of speak on Simon's behalf. Like, you had my amp out, I was playing it, you were changing caps while I was playing. That whole experience for a guitar player, for example, is something that's quite remarkable to actually hear the difference, or you were changing and you were bypassing things while I was playing. That's something that I've never experienced that before. So obviously you've done it with Simon, you've done it with myself, you do it with players. So that's I guess that's your niche. You're customizing the amp to suit the player. Yeah, that's the beauty of what you've done to my amp. It just, when I'm playing it, it just suits my hands. Yeah.
Awesome. Can I ask a question?
Yep.
How important is it and I suppose this is more directed to Hos and Brad, but how important is it for your amp tech to be a guitar player? Yeah, and then obviously I want Wazza to answer that, but is that something? Is that important? Does that matter?
Okay, I'll go first. I think that, look, obviously it helps if someone working on the nuances of your amplifier can play guitar. Although I would say probably it's more important that they know about sound than actually being able to physically play a guitar. Like, so for example, Wazza was saying, you know, he's one of Australia's great front of house engineers, and his ear is very finely tuned, and he can hear the difference in the values in capacitors and stuff when he changes the amp, that even back to back, that is so subtle that even it takes me a little while to get my ear around it. And then, you know, Wazza might even have to coach me a bit to say, okay, what you're listening for is with this capacitor, it sounds a bit more like this. And with this one, it sounds a bit more like that. So I actually think the more valuable thing is someone that just has incredible ears, you know?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Well, you can't hear anymore because of so many amp tweaks.
Well, no, I can't hear anymore because I did a Barnesy gig last night.
Oh, did you? Right.
Yeah.
That'll do it. How'd it go?
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a good tie into Van Halen show talking about Barnesy.
Yes.
He, you know, Eddie asked him to join the band. Yeah.
I believe so. So for anyone that doesn't know, so Waz talking about that he was working with Jimmy Barnes last night, who is a iconic Australian sort of blues rock singer, I guess you would say, and very famous in Australia and some other parts of the world.
Yep.
He was actually considered as a replacement for David Lee Roth back in the day. And you can actually find some interviews with Eddie where he talks about that they were talking to Jimmy Barnes. Mm-hmm. So that's the very same that you were working with last night.
That's right.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
There were a couple of Aussies, New Zealanders, because as I understand too, John Stevens at one stage was considered or auditioned or sent an audition tape when they were auditioning for a singer after Sammy left. So interesting that Aussies and Kiwis are getting considered for some of these big name bands.
Yeah, and another one on a completely other topic is when Bobby Kimball left Toto back in, I think it was around 83, 84, they were considering another famous Australian singer, John Farnham, as the replacement.
Really?
Yeah, for Bobby Kimball. So, I mean,
I did not know that.
Yeah. And actually, I think that would have been a really good fit because Farnham would have had the range to do all that early Toto stuff that, you know, that really only Bobby sang the way that I like to hear it, you know. Yeah. But
oh wow.
But you know what we should do then was the world could finally get to hear what it would have sounded like with Jimmy Barnes being the singer of Van Halen if I can convince him through the Corner Hotel.
Yeah. I'll give him a call.
Okay, great.
Get Barnesy in.
That's too funny. Very good. And so Woz, you've obviously got my Plexi in at your workshop at the moment.
Yes.
Just maybe briefly, so tell people what you had twisted my rubber arm to do to that girl. You know?
So we're going to make that because what we'd done is we'd made it into a sort of a 2-inputter. So that when you go into one input, a high input, it kind of does a cascade Jose sort of vibe thing.
Yep.
And then when you go into the lower input, it is like your old Plexi sort of thing. But we've got a master and a preamp. And so what we're going to do, well, it's halfway there, is make it into a switchable 2-channel thing. So that then one channel is the hotter Jose-ish sort of thing, and then the other one's a bit more straight ahead Plexi.
So when you say Jose-ish kind of thing, does that mean more like a modded JCM 800 kind of vibe? Is that sort of what you mean, or not really?
Kind of like an 800 is a cascade. But the second preamp tube, preamp gain stage is not as hot whereas a Jose, which is what basically anything you see Californian sort of modified nowadays, that's what everyone's doing, is basically they just take the first stage from a Marshall and replicate it and drive it into a similar stage. You get more gain.
Yeah. So it's an added front end stage, kind of. Would that be a basic way of putting it?
Yep.
Okay.
Basically, it's Cascade.
Yeah. Very cool.
But it's basically what Friedman and all those dudes are doing. Cameron, the whole lot of them.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Brad, have you got any other questions for Woz?
Look, I've got a million and ones about my amplifier in particular, but I want to keep it more about the Van Halen thing. So, we've discussed this before, was the difference between like the peaveys and the 5150s that came out, the Marshall tone that he was getting, and also, have you had much to do with the new EVH range, like in relation to tone wise, and do you think, if you have, that they're in the ballpark for the old school Marshall tone, or where are they sitting? Are they more leaning towards the peavey, or where
they're quite high gain.
Yeah,
lots of gain. So they're not a old school Marshall vibe at all. It basically they took what the PV 5150 was and just kept on going with it.
Right. Yeah.
Am I delaying?
Yeah, I can hear a bit of a delay actually.
Yeah, but when we mute Brad's mic, yeah, it's a bit of a pain. Never mind.
Oh, it's Brad.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Yep. Okay.
Are we okay?
Yep. Good. I'm good.
All good. So the modern 5153s, I guess they are. Really high gain amp. Even they did that EL34 one. It's a lot of gain.
Yeah, right.
It's not a classic Marshall sound.
Right.
They sound good if you're after that much gain. But like our friend Zach, we were talking about it, and he's like, yeah, I think, because didn't Eddie have an accident where he injured his wrist or something later on or something like that, and basically he kind of just started piling on the gain to kind of make up for the loss of power that he had, I think. And so way more gain, too much gain in those amps, I feel.
Yeah, actually that's a pretty common thought. Most people that I've spoken to, or even just that you hear talking about it online and in the forums and whatnot, say that man, they've got so much gain that really at its extreme, it's kind of almost unusable, Although totally. I guess some people are using it, so just probably not unusable. It's the wrong way to put it, but just not right for Eddie's tone. Too much gain for Eddie.
Well, not for the old Eddie tone. A lot of metal dudes love them.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. I'm going to take the opportunity because we've got some echo issues of just doing a quick shout out, guys, if that's okay, because we want to acknowledge everyone. So we've got Ellen in the chat. Thank you, Ellen. Mark Tanner's joining us. Christine Taylor, thank you for hanging out with us, Christine. It's always nice to see you. Hobo Roadie, our friend Mark Tanner. Always really cool and happy to see you, brother. Thank you for hanging out with us. We've got Simon Hosford all the way from Melbourne in the chat there with us as well. Nelson Rodriguez, good friend of the channel. Bent Tom, another very good friend who's part and parcel of Fruitcake Tony's show. Guys, this is a good opportunity for me to tell you. If you go to our banner on this page, you'll see on the channels, I've got Hos's channel. I got some delay. Brad's channel, Fruitcake Tony's, and a lot of other people's channels there. So if you want to be part and parcel of that, flick us a link and we'll put you in that channel section of YouTube. Oh my gosh. What else are we going to talk about? Because I've done my job again.
Well, do you still have I know you're flat sticks today, and so thanks for being able to even jump in with us for a few moments. Do you have a couple of moments more?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, great. Well,
okay.
Sorry, Go on. I was just going to ask then, maybe if you could kind of share with everyone what makes, because everyone talks, if we're going to bring it back to Ed's tone, like Andrew was saying, what particularly about the way he was using that plexi makes that amp sound so unique? Because obviously there are lots of different types of Marshalls and lots of different, even sort of Marshall copy high gain amps today.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone still kind of talks about that brown sound and whatever. And look, obviously we all know that a lot of it comes from the hands and Ed himself and all of that stuff. But when you take those variables out of the equation, what about the late 60s plexi and the way he used it particularly makes that sound that everyone loves?
Well, that was a 1200 series plexi. So what was it, 68, I think? 68, 69, 68. So the filtering was different. Yeah, it was a different style of filtering in that amplifier.
Right.
So lower in some places. It wasn't really like I've seen pictures of the guts of it. I haven't actually seen inside it. I'd love to, but he did have. There's that one cap that people talk about, which they call the fat cap, I guess, which sits over the cathode, driving the tone stack in the cathode follower. That makes quite a big difference. Juices the whole thing up a little bit.
Yep. So that means it gives it a bit more extra gain or something. Is that when you say
there's more gain, and the value of that cap is massive. It's the same value of the cap that's on the bassy side of a 4 inputter. So one's really trebly, the other one's quite bassy. So it's that same value, which is way too big. But what being too big kind of adds some compression, definitely adds gain sort of across the range of frequencies.
Yep.
The Variac made a big difference as well. Dropping voltage, you're dropping your headroom, so things distort easier. Also, it's dropping the heater voltage as well, which will sort of change the way the tubes work a little bit, add some little distortions in there. And like, it's a throwaway thing, but it's not really. It's his hands as well. Like, the good position I've been in is, well, it's not good all the time, but like I'll play an amp and tune it and do things, and then I'll hand it to someone like you, or Mossy or Jack Jones or Diesel, right? And all of your hands are amazing. Like that's where all the tone, like it's so cliche, but it really is. Like take you for example, like it's like when you give you a guitar, there's an extra overdrive pedal that's been put on. Like have more, you develop more voltage from your hands.
Right.
That's definitely.
That's interesting.
Like you can't underplay the player. Like that is the major link in the chain. Like there's so many times where I've done amps and it's like, yep, that thing sounds great. And then you hand it to someone and you're like, oh my God, is it broken? What happened? And it's definitely the player. So I think Eddie could have played through anything at that stage and it would have been amazing because he just had it in his hands. Like, unfortunately, that's the thing, I think.
And the other thing you hear a lot about is in a lot of these great new books that have come out or interviews with people is how many people over the years got an opportunity either at the 5150 studio or at a rehearsal somewhere to plug into Eddie's amp and we're sort of almost disappointed to find out that it didn't sound like Ed at all. It sounded like them, you know? So even that, I mean, I remember listening to Nuno on Dweezil Zappa's podcast talking about when he met him, and plugged in and he was like, and he was a huge Eddie Van Halen fan. And he plugged in and he was like, oh, wow, just that amp sounds just as if it's my amp almost,
Yeah.
So,
Didn't he do the tapping bit out of Get the Funk Out? And he's like, none of that fancy stuff or something. Wasn't that the story?
There is a funny story about that.
I can't remember.
And, I think how that came about was, and I might get this a bit wrong, so someone in the chat, if they know, can correct me. But there was Nuno in an interview was talking about Eddie Van Halen and talking about, all that fancy stuff, all that tapping and whatnot. And then when Nuno met Ed in a rehearsal room, I think it was, or in a recording studio, Ed said, "Hey, come in and sit down and have a play." And Nuno's like, "Oh man, what am I possibly going to play in front of Ed? I can't play his licks." So he played the tapping part from Get the Funk Out, or one of those songs off Pornography. And unbeknownst to Nuno, Ed had listened to or read the interview where Nuno was saying, "Oh, I can't do all that fancy stuff." So when Nuno pulled out the tapping, Ed tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, none of that fancy stuff.
And, it's awesome.
Which was very cool, because obviously that told Nuno that Ed had listened to the interview. So that would have been, they had a laugh about that. I think that's pretty cool, actually. Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up with Nuno too, and I love Nuno's playing, and you can definitely, Nuno's got his own thing, but you can hear the Ed influence in there for sure, like you can with a lot of us, So yeah,
definitely,
absolutely. But yeah, I agree with you. But I think to my ears, a really, really big part of what that old Eddie Van Halen plexi thing is just working that power section of the amp really, really,
100%.
really hard. Because to me, it changes the transients, it changes the attacks of the notes, and I think that, like, even you take like a Van Halen song like Running with the Devil, and you've got those like, sorry, not Running with the Devil, Feel Your Love, and they're just arpeggios, but you can hear, because the power stage is so cranked, it's getting this weird compressed sort of squeak on.
Well, that's the reduced headroom from the Variac.
Yeah. And you can hear that, and you can't. I mean, I've played that lick through a bunch of different amps and even amp sim type stuff in Pro Tools in my studio, and you just can't. You can't get that any other way,
Totally, and also 6 CA7s in the output stage as well, instead of standard EL34. That changes things a little bit. 6 CA7s. Different sounding tube. It's a little bit more of an American sounding EL34.
Gotcha.
So it's not quite 6L6 territory. Still sort of EL34. Just slightly different. So that changed things a little bit as well.
Great.
Great. I've got a question for you, Wazza. So I'm looking forward to these new 5150 Iconic amps that they leaked a couple of pics a few months ago about, and apparently these amps are going to be made in China. So they're an affordable amp, and they've got the peavey look. I think a lot of Van Halen fans are going to be bought and won over because of that, because obviously the look is cool. That's really, really important. Let's be honest and admit that. But I'm pretty certain that anything that's got EVH's name on it moving forward is going to sound pretty good too, isn't it?
Who knows? Well, that's the same designer, James Brown. So the guy that designed the peavey 5150 started working for the EVH brand again. Before that, he was his own company, Amp Tweaker Pedals.
So the question I've got then for you is, 20, 30 years ago when these amps were made in the States, so obviously the components that went into them and the rate of pay was a little bit higher. So they were high, expensive amps, obviously, back then. So with technology being what it is now and the design from that original designer, so these amps are going to be pretty good, aren't they?
Remains to be seen. Apparently, there's quite a lot of solid state in the front end of those amps, from what I've heard.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's how they get the price point down so low. Because never underestimate peavey. Peavey, even though that they were built in America and blah, blah, he knew how to put things together cheaply, like at an affordable price. So, yeah, this series of amps, I think there's only one 12AX7 in there, or maybe two. So there's a lot of solid state in there.
Okay.
So who knows?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I suppose like all of us, we'll probably have to wait till they get released.
Exactly.
Go into the guitar shops and crank them up and see what they're like. But I'm kind of picking up then, so probably the best thing to do would be probably to get an old Marshall amp and go and see a guy like Wazza and get it tweaked and do it that way. That's probably the best bet, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Look, my Plexi, as Wazza knows, is nothing special. It's not an old one. It's a reissue from, I think I bought it brand new in about 95. Like that, 1995.
Totally.
And, so it's not hand wired or even anything like that.
It is now.
Special. It is now. But look, Wazza's weaved his magic on it over the years, and it's sounding great. And so I would say, like, if someone really, really does want to go sort of vintage and authentic and get one of these non-master volume amps, I mean, you could, if you wanted to do it without blowing heaps of money, you could buy a reissue and then just get someone to kind of fiddle with it a bit, just to really bring it, give it some love, bring it back to life, change a few parts to better quality parts or wiring. And if you're lucky enough to have someone at hand with Wazza's ears, then you can't go wrong, really.
Can I also ask one more question, Wazza, while you're here? And it's a selfish question on my behalf, please. I've got a Marshall Blues Breaker. I bought it about 18 months ago because I'm a Clapton nut and I'm chasing that Beano tone. I haven't done anything to it other than replace the rectifier valve blue. So not hearing me play and not knowing my attack or anything like that, if someone bought in a Blues Breaker amp to you and they said that they wanted to emulate that kind of mid-late 60s British electric blues tone, what would the first thing you would do or suggest doing, please?
How old's the reissue that you got?
It's
Is it one of the
2
new
years.
one?
One of the new ones, yeah.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure they were coming out with a... I think it was a Chinese 5881 style output tube. I'd probably, if you're after that, classic Blues Breaker tone, I'd probably go to like a KD66 output tube.
Okay.
And then I'd play with preamp tubes, make a massive difference. Like, you just got to buy a whole heap and then try them out, slot them out, put one in. Preamp tubes are a great mod for people because they're easy. As long as you don't twist them as you're pulling them out and destroy them, you just pop them out. Unlike me, you should turn it into standby or possibly off when you do it. Like I don't, but that's because I'm a fool. But it's one of the easiest mods you can do. Like, sometimes it's a big difference. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes, like, Pete Thorne's done all those videos on different 12AX7s and different EL34s. And that's all well and good. It's not always sound differences. A lot of the time, it's feel differences as well.
Correct.
So
and
those would be the first things I'd look at.
And because we're guitar players, we know exactly what you're talking about. Exactly. Yeah. It's that space that you get off the strings off the fretboard, which is sometimes indescribable. Know exactly what you're talking about. Thank you, brother.
No props.
Yeah.
That'll be $50, thanks.
Brad's going to buy you a couple of beers at the corner bar, so he's got a tab running. So go and see Brad.
Yeah, and
awesome.
And of course, it goes without saying that if anyone has any more questions for Woz and they live in Melbourne, they can come along to the Corner Hotel on January 25 and hassle him while he's doing sound.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
I won't be busy.
No.
I won't be busy dealing with Jerry's monster drum kit, Roto Toms, Simmons, triggers.
Oh my Lord.
He's really thrown the kitchen sink at it, hasn't he? It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Hossie's quadraphonic guitar rig.
Not quite quadraphonic, although I'm going to have to definitely go into the Corner Hotel a week ago.
Sorry.
That's all right. You blew it up. It's brilliant. There we go. Yep, that's the rig. I mean, I don't know how I'm really going to get all of that into the Corner Hotel, but we will see.
We'll fit it.
You think so?
Oh yeah, well, I think we fit. 2 or 3. Yeah, exactly.
It's not your problem.
Yeah, exactly. That guy.
Brilliant.
I think we fit 3 stacks aside with airborne in the corner.
Oh, you did? Okay. But I'm imagining, were they 3 half stacks each side, or did you get them full stacks, like double high?
They don't do half stacks.
Oh. So you got 6 quad boxes each side of the drum riser at the corner with airborne?
Pretty sure.
Oh, well, there you go. That makes me smile. I'm very happy to hear that. Thanks, brother.
And I think I heard you saying something about Glenn was like, oh, there might be lights in the way, but we'll just take the lights away. We don't need them. We need stacks, not lights. Stacks.
Yeah. Stacks. No, he was actually Glenn who, so for anyone that doesn't know, Glenn Falloon's doing lights on the night. And he was just saying that maybe if I didn't put the heads on top of the boxes, we could still do the double high boxes, but then he could actually put like a lighting truss across the tops of the boxes. So it's so kind of symmetrical and stuff.
Yeah, cool.
But, we'll see. We'll figure all that out. But
yeah.
The good news is that you say that we can get 3 boxes on each side. That's brilliant, because Jason, I think, is going to have double bass fridges.
Oh, 2 8x10s, great.
2 8x10s on his side, and then the 3 quad boxes across on my side.
Great.
Wow.
Yeah. Bent Tom saying, I only do full stacks. Yeah, exactly. Now that's good news, brother. Good news. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Wazza, before you need to nick off?
Not really.
Well,
I'm good for a little bit longer, if you're right. Like, there's nothing happening out there at the moment, so
okay, cool.
They don't need me. No one's come knocking on the window, so
brilliant. And how are we going, Andrew, with the delay? Did we figure out where that was coming from?
Well, it's unfortunately muting Brad is solving the issue. So he's put his hand up. So he's got to put his hand up to speak. But he's muted himself. So if he puts his, so unmute yourself now, brother.
Oh, I want to join in, but I'm just sitting here listening. I'm not ignoring you, mate. I just avoiding the delay issues. We might get Simon to come into this room. Maybe we can just jump on the one computer. Might solve a lot of problems.
Well, how am I going to do that from my place? That's impossible.
You have to drive over really quickly, mate.
Oh God!
All right. Where do you live? What's it? Text me your address, and I'll see how quick I can get there.
I've seen Saucy drive before. He'll get there quick.
Hey. All right, hang
Victorians. Victorians.
Is there an echo still now?
No.
Okay, so I think there's some sort of crossover with Hos's connection, mine or something, and so we've got around it somehow. We've muted it, so it's all good. But I just got a visitor. Hang on. I've got a visitor, guys.
Look who it is. That was quick. Told you he's a quick driver.
So
Ford or Holden?
What's that?
Ford or Holden? How did you get there?
Neither. Teleportation, actually. I managed to find on eBay that same machine that Jeff Goldblum made in the 80s and came up with that.
Oh, nice. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Got a drink of water. That's
Thanks.
it, brother. Yeah.
Oh, look at this. This is nice and cozy.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Look at this. We're cuddling up.
Yeah. And how does that go, Andrew? That solves the echo problem, does it?
Fantastic, brothers. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for that.
We'll have to see that. I mean, I was in a completely separate room with the doors closed, so I don't know why we were getting some echo. Nevertheless, it's good if we sort it out. That's all that matters.
Yeah. So we're just sitting here. I was just sitting here listening to you guys chatting, going, I want to say something, and I forgot what you guys are talking about now, but it's all right. I'll go back and watch it.
Hey, John is out there saying it's Hos forward, not Hos Holden.
Oh,
come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a question for Wazza. So it gets back to EVH, and it's all well known. All these books here that we're picking up, and all the magazine articles over the years we've read, where Eddie wasn't afraid to play around with his amps. He blew up a lot of amps, and just had a go. So what do you think that did for guitar techs when that story started coming out? That amps could be something that you could tweak, because there was always this impression that these big Marshalls, these monoliths to the Marshall gods and the gods of music, you couldn't touch. So and then you had a guy, a skinny guy from the Netherlands saying, no, I'm just going to go and play with it. So that would have been an interesting period in rock and roll history, was it?
Yeah, well, the thing is, so the guy that I learnt from was an old Scottish guy who was there in the 60s when Marshall kind of came about, and he was an amazing amp tech, amongst other things. But we all look back on vintage Marshalls now like they were very desirable and awesome and all these things, whereas to him they were junk. Like, they weren't amazing amps. They were a poor man's Fender that broke up and distorted.
Wow.
And
was
they never sorry,
can I ask you, my understanding is that the Marshall Plexi was more or less based on a Fender Bassman in the first place, right?
Like a copy, basically a copy of an early, I can't remember the model name, but it was the one with the cathode follower. It was a straight copy, but they used English parts and English tubes. The transformers were RS, who is they're still around today. RS. We've got RS in Australia that sell electronic components. So they used what was available to them. And they were just a cheap Fender because people couldn't afford Fenders over in the UK. But with using all those bits and blah, 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 they distorted. But people were definitely tweaking amps and stuff. It's just Eddie, I think, just had he was reckless, might be a word. Like he didn't see any boundaries. Like, that was one thing for me growing up, was seeing him mucking around with these guitars and cutting holes in them and drilling them. And I was like, I can do that. Awesome. But people were modifying amps even back then. Like for a lot of old amp techs, the high watt is more the holy grail, like the thing that you don't modify or touch that much. Whereas like my old boss used to tell me, he's like, we never thought the Marshalls were going to get worse as they went along. Like the Plexis it wasn't like they were the greatest thing ever. Like, it's pretty funny. It's just we're looking back on it now going, that's what we want, But people did modify stuff, and Eddie with the tubes blowing it up, well, there's a bias control in there, and he saw a control apparently as it goes and just turn it all the way up. So those tubes were cooking. But the thing was, when he started doing the Variac thing, turning those tubes up so they were cooking, well, they weren't cooking as much because of the lower HT voltage. So
gotcha.
But and they weren't using matched tubes. I think there was a story about Jose was like, right, that's enough, and he started matching the tubes so that they would put a whole set in at a time. But
I've heard that too, actually, and that they had a lot of problems when the power tubes were mismatched, but when they started matching them, that pretty much solved a lot of the problems. Actually, I've heard both John Suhr and Dave Freeman say that I believe both of them have had a look at Eddie's 1968 original Plexi, and they've said really it was pretty much stock, except for obviously it's a replacement of some parts from wear and tear,
Like there was someone that got in there and replaced all the wire with like Teflon coated silver plated wire and stuff like that, because they thought that was an upgrade. But like, even because that circuit is so simple, everything makes a difference, and wire does sound different. So I think Dave just went back and restored it back to what it was really like.
Well,
Yeah.
Eddie famously, and we've read that in a lot of articles, knew the differences between the ply and pine in the cabinets, you know. So
Oh, yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
yeah. So that kind of freaked a lot of people out because, you know, most of us, you know, never had that opportunity to, you know, play with all these different amps, but clearly he had over the years had this opportunity, but for him to sit there and go, I know exactly, you know, what the wood is, whether it's ply or pine, and the thickness, just even now, guys, just blows me away. So was it to hear you say that is amazing, because clearly you can.
Oh, you can, like, anyone can tell the difference. It's just a matter of being exposed to that. Yeah, if you had those two cabs side by side and you played into it, you'd hear it in a second. It's a different thing. Like Fender is pine.
That one over there, this one right over the corner, the one with the check mesh on it, is maple shell.
Yeah.
This one's ply. Even though they've got different speakers in it, like you can really, I mean, obviously that's got Celestion 25s, that's got vintage 30s in it. So the tonality, they're a bit different, but the maple shell is a lot lighter, but it has a lot more snap to it, in my opinion. Would that sound correct, Was?
Is he frozen? Maybe he's frozen.
He's frozen.
Yeah.
He's coming to join you guys. He's going to join the party too, I think.
He's going to come in a second.
He's going to walk in the room as well.
Yeah.
I've
got a question for Was too. Damn it.
That's okay. I'm sure he'll be back. Hey, Caleb. See Caleb in the chat there. Nerd Halen.
We got Caleb. We got Christopher in the chat. We had Michael Richardson in the chat. Keith Campbell joining us. Leo Staffco. Thank you guys for joining us. Here he is.
Was back.
Was back.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're right.
You're right. I don't know how much you heard of what I said. You probably dropped out or something. Did you hear what I was saying about the two quad boxes?
I heard, one. The last thing I heard was that the other one's got vintage 30s in it.
Yeah, well, I mean, tonality-wise, they're different, but there's definitely more crack or snappiness about the more mid-range, like low mids to mid sort of punch out of a maple shell. Would that sound about right to you, Was?
Yeah. Maple's a snappier wood.
Yeah. Yep.
Everything affects everything. It's the most annoying thing about guitars is that everything changes everything.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
Yeah, that's right. No one thing exists on its own in a vacuum. You know, everything is a sort of a fluid relationship. And I saw there was a question in the chat about, you know, what about speakers and stuff like we're talking about now? But of course, they make a huge difference as well.
Massive.
You know, but I always think, you know, with a classic rock sound, for me it's pretty simple. I mean, if in doubt, there's obviously a lot of great options, especially these days. But if you're in doubt, you know, you'd put greenbacks or maybe vintage 30s, or like what some people do, they put a combination of the two. Yeah. But really, I mean, if you're looking beyond that, then you're getting really, really specific. You know, and maybe you're looking for a tone that is very unique or something. But if you just want a classic rock tone, you can't go past good greenbacks or vintage 30s. I mean, it's sort of, for me, it's sort of that simple, really. Yeah. You know, and then obviously the wood in the box and stuff like that. But you know, I try not to think about that stuff too much. I think that as long as you're in the ballpark of the right gear, like, I mean, my main quad box when I'm using the Plexi is my pretty standard Marshall straight face, you know, B box with greenbacks in it, 25 watt greenbacks. And actually, I think Andrew's got a picture of it there somewhere.
That's a nice AB box.
It's a good AB box. I'm actually using it as a splitter to run to the inputs of the Eventide H3000 and the Lexicon Verb.
Okay.
So that's what I'm using after. I mean, we can talk about that in a minute. Actually, is what I'm going to a bit about the rig I'm putting together. But have you got the photo of my speaker cabinet there, Andrew?
Hold on, brother. Hold on.
Yep, no worries.
Let me find it.
But I mean, talking about the box that I use, it's nothing special. It's not old. It's not vintage. It's just something that I bought from Marshall in the mid-90s.
Yep.
And I've had it ever since. And it could probably do with a bit of love at this point.
One thing that people obsess about all this stuff.
Yeah. Was his frozen?
He always looks like he's serious when he's frozen.
It always freezes on a
Sorry, my
serious.
interwebs keep cutting out.
It never freezes on a like. Yeah. Very good. But
I think I'm back now. Hi. Sorry. It's just terrible. It keeps jumping in and out. We'll do a proper one of these like over Christmas when I'm at home.
Yeah,
no problem.
Cool.
It's one of the cool things though about going live on assignment, bro. It's yeah.
But what I was going to say is that people obsess about all these things.
It's the exact same sentence.
We lost them again. Hold on.
On the same sentence. I think it's that sentence triggers the internet gods, That's funny.
The internet gods. Yeah. Hold on.
Gods.
Trying to find this. Hold on, guys.
He's
spinning. He's spinning around.
He's spinning. He's spinning.
He's spinning out.
That's all right. He's we've bled him for all his gold already anyway, We don't need him anymore now. We've got the answers.
So that's your
Yeah. So that's my old quad box. You can see it's been around the block a few times. It's and the speakers in it are the original ones from when I bought it in the mid-90s, and they're just Celestian greenbacks, and it sounds great. I could spend all my time trying out different quad boxes and putting different speakers in them, but for me, I just want to get to it quicker than that. I just want to get to the playing, and I feel like, okay, great, I've got a Marshall quad box with greenbacks. Tick. Let's move on to the next thing. And look, obviously, if I recorded with it or used it live and it didn't sound right or didn't sound good to my ears, then yes, I'd look somewhere else and do something else. But I think, it's easy to get stuck comparing the very, very subtle differences in. I mean, you could probably get 4 Marshall quad boxes with greenbacks and they'd all sound tiny bit different just because that's the universe we live in. But, at the end of the day, I feel like if you're in the ballpark, then just get on with it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
Was. Earth calling was. There he is.
There he is.
Hi.
Hey!
I don't think it's much better. I think I might go
That's
and
okay,
try
brother.
this again another time.
I was just saying we've bled you for all your info anyway, so,
Bugger.
And then
Hi.
Come back on, brother. Come
I'll
back
try
on.
again another time.
Yeah,
Right.
come back on when you're in your workshop, and we'll do a proper stream, and we can deep dive. I'd love to get you back on.
Am I back?
Right. Thank you, Wazza.
Love you, mate.
Yeah,
See ya.
love you, brother.
No, I'm not.
I'm gonna drop him out and
Drop him out. Yeah,
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Wazza.
yeah.
Yeah, Wazza's such a nice guy. I can vouch that, if anyone lives in Melbourne, it's a great opportunity to go and see Waz. He puts so much time and energy into, doing the mods that you want. He actually will sit there and spend that extra time with you and get it how you want it as well, which is very unique. I've never known anything like it, to be honest with you, in all my
Awesome.
time modding things and that. So thanks
thanks
so much.
Awesome, bro. And good. Guess who's in the chat? All the way from Matt from Dropkick Blues. G'day, brother.
Buddy, we've got to do a show with you again at some point. We'd love to get you back on. And we've got John ZD351, our brother here in Melbourne, who's gonna roadie for us apparently and pick up the tab.
Excellent.
Yeah. So now, Hos, I've seen some toys.
Yeah, I did bring in some toys. I thought while we were nerding out on amplifiers and stuff, we probably shouldn't leave completely out the other part of the equation. So I brought in some of the axes that I'm going to be using on the show, in case anyone's interested in that stuff as well. And so I can show a bit of those. But my daily custom designs 5150, which of course I've affectionately called Annette, has now she's had some plastic surgery on her neck. So she's out of the operating theater, and she's got a new neck, and she's playing incredibly, sounds beautiful, and all is well. So the original neck that Neil sent out with her, I basically have now as a backup neck, which is perfect. You know, I think that's probably a really good thing to have anyway.
Sure.
So let me grab her.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to present you guys, if that's okay, and I'm just going to throw some comments up. So,
sure, you present away.
Cool.
Okay, so for those who haven't seen, this is the 5150 live without a net replica that Neil Daly from Daily Custom Designs has built, and he's done such a beautiful job. He's mimicked the paintwork to be exactly of the amount of wear and tear as on the live without a net video. Hence, that's why I've called her Annette, of course, because she needs a name. And this is the gorgeous maple neck that Neil has graciously sent me out. And we've put on her, and she's playing incredibly. And I think we were talking, weren't we, Andrew, about on the next show,
yes,
I'm going to have my home studio all rigged up through the interface on my laptop so that we can actually hear, without any room sound and stuff, what this is actually going to sound like at the gig. So what I'll do is I'll mic up my quad box, I'll run it through my studio and do all that stuff, and then everyone can hear it properly. So that'll be, we can do that on the next show.
So obviously we're going to have to ask the standard question. So what Floyd Rose have you got in there? What's the pickup? We see that you've got a brass block in there, so that's always a really important thing. So what do you got in there, brother?
Well, Neil managed to source me, because he's an absolute legend, that Floyd Rose, hang on, let's see, there you go.
Yeah.
He's actually a vintage correct 1984 Floyd Rose. So obviously I'm ecstatic that that's on it, because that's the vintage of the guitar that he was replicating. And the pickup in there is a Pariah Pasadena Black. And so for anyone that isn't as familiar with the Pariah pickups, Sean there makes killer pickups. The Pasadena Black is one of a series of Van Halen pickups that he makes, and it's the hotter output. So it's about 14K, Alnico 2 magnets. Yeah. But you can see, like, there's little tiny bits of wear there where Eddie was putting his picks and stuff. So there's, man, this is really hard to do back. You've got the gaffer tape marks where he used to stick his picks as well. But gorgeous guitar. So this is going to be the main guitar for the second half of the show. I'll probably be sticking mostly to playing this, even though we're doing a mixture of, we've kind of cherry-picked songs for the second half of the show. First half will be the Van Halen 1 record in track order. Kind of basically just you can grab onto that.
Hold that there, and it can stay here.
Beautiful. So
staying here, by the way. I mean, when I say stay here, it's staying there.
That's all right. You can. It's getting a bit lonely at my place anyway while I've been fettering around with other things. But so the first half of the show will be the Van Halen 1 album, pretty much just an encore performance of what we did at the Melbourne Guitar Show. For anyone that wasn't able to catch that. And then the second half of the show, we're basically just cherry-picked our favorite Van Halen songs from across all the different records. So some of it will be David Lee Roth era stuff. Some of it will be Sammy Hagar stuff. And actually, I've had the good fortune to that a good old friend of mine that I hadn't caught up with for a long time, but that I used to know really, really well back when I was a teenager, Mr. Paul Gale, who ran Soundworks Music here in Melbourne, and worked on all my stuff, and that I used to catch the train on the way back from high school home and jump off at a particular station where the store was, and I'd just go in there with my school bag and just look at all the guitars and ask questions for about an hour or until I thought I'd get my butt kicked for getting home too late. So I used to just do that. And as it turns out, he happens to have a Steinberger with a trans trim on it. So I'm going to be using that for a lot of the 5150 album stuff.
Oh, really?
I've got that here as well, so perhaps I can show that. And
Oh,
now
yeah.
I'll grab it. So it's not the cricket bat one. What it is, it's the more like regular curved guitar shape one. And there was a problem with the original one that he had with it. It was damaged. And so what he did was completely made a brand new body out of this gorgeous figured wood and then just retrofit all the original parts onto this wood body. So it's a pretty rare Steinberger. I'll grab it.
Oh. Oh, look at that. Oh.
So isn't that absolutely gorgeous?
Oh.
Nowhere to put my cigarettes. Damn it. I'll have to get one. But yeah,
what year is that, Hos?
This would be 80s for sure. But then, like I was saying, this body, Paul made completely himself. And I'm sorry, I forget the wood. He did tell me. But it's just absolutely gorgeous. And so he's graciously whipped this back into shape. And I'll be using this for all the 5150 album stuff. Like we're doing Good Enough and Get Up and Summer Nights and all of that stuff. But yeah, so that's a gorgeous axe. And it sounds really good too. We've got some promos for the show that we're going to release probably over the next week. And then you'll get to hear this and see this in action on the promo.
Oh, I bet you everybody in the chat and your co-hosts can't wait for that, brother. Wow. Because that's just a unique EVH tone. If you can nail that.
That Steinberger is very heavy too.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. That little tiny guitar weighs more than any other guitar I've got.
It's
heavier than a Les Paul.
Yep.
Wow.
And most of it is that trans trem bridge. And Paul has a spare trans trem in his workshop, and I held that in my hands, and you realize where all the weight of the guitar is. I mean, that thing weighs a ton, just the bridge, you know. So yeah, it's a super heavy guitar. Then,
wow, I didn't know that.
For the first album, I'm going to be using this bad boy, which was built by Joe Occhipinti at Guitar House, who works on all my guitars and does an incredible job. So this was built by him. It's got the standard bridge, as you can see, instead of a Floyd, but just 2 pins instead of I think Eddie had the 6 screws, you know?
Yeah.
But this one's just got the 2. And the only other thing really he did very different is he's put a brass roller nut on it, just really mainly for tuning stability, you know, because it's got the standard trem and no lock nut. So it's got a brass roller nut on there. It's got the little Gibson sticker, which is part of the thing. And the pickup is a JB in it. And this thing just sounds awesome. Really, really good. The bridge stays in tune really well. So this one I'll be using for the first set.
Keith Campbell's just put a statement in the chat. He's saying it's £5 on the trans trem alone, guys. So no wonder that's a heavy guitar then. No wonder.
Yeah, I mean, I had a Telecaster that only weighed a little bit more than that, the whole guitar, you know, so there you go. And then I've got Old Faithful. So this is just the Fender Player Series that I used on the Melbourne Guitar Show gig. So this has got the Floyd on it. So it's not, you know, it's not obviously an Eddie Van Halen replica or anything. But this is the one I used on the Melbourne Guitar Show. So this will be there for moral support, shall we say.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that that's just the one that you played on that Melbourne Guitar Show, because that Melbourne Guitar Show clip is going to go down in EVH history as something quite unique and phenomenal. So, you know, gaffer tape the the neck and the middle pickup. You gaffer taped that over, didn't you? So
well, this one since then you can see that Joe and I changed over the scratch plate, so now there's no single coil pickups at all, but it's the same guitar. Yeah, we just put electrical tape over the single coils to block them out, which was felt like something a 15-year-old would do, but that's fine.
Oh well. You know, to be fair, I didn't pick it up when I first watched it. So, mind you, I wasn't watching too much. You know, I'm. Oh my gosh, what have you got there?
So this is my Frankie, and this one, believe it or not, this was before I spoke with Neil Daly about building a 5150 replica. So I thought I'd better have something with some red paint on it as well for the show. So I put this together with Joe. I got this neck and body from China for $400 painted.
Oh, gosh.
Just on eBay, actually. You can sometimes find these really cheap sort of Chinese knockoffs. And look, who knows what the body really is wood-wise and the neck even, you know, it's pretty rudimentary. But we put a proper Floyd on it. We put a similar Duncan Frankenstein in the bridge. And then, you know, Joe weaved his magic over the fretboard and the neck, and it plays great. So my only problem really with the Frankenstein guitar is because of the single coil cavities and because of the way that scratch plate is cut there, my pick and my index finger hit it and get caught in it all the time.
Wow.
So as much as it's a good guitar and, you know, it does the job perfect, this will just be there as a backup. I probably won't play it because I find that with the way my pick keeps hitting all the single coil cavities is sort of frustrating for me. So, but killer guitar.
Oh, it's a beautiful guitar. What you could do is you can get some clear plexi or something like that and put it over there, and that might stop the problem, and it still looks, you know.
Look, I probably could get like a piece of like clear plastic, and extend that scratch plate part. That would probably solve that problem. You're right. But yeah, so that's that one.
Oh, that looks beautiful, bro. And Brad, you're going to get to play all those guitars, you rat bag.
I know. Sorry. Yeah, I will. But,
well, Hos has made an agreement with me to come to my house to use my Wi-Fi. He's got to leave the guitars with me for a week.
Yeah.
And not only that, I promised I would wear Brad's T-shirt.
Yeah,
there you go.
BC.
Yeah, he said you're allowed to come and do the podcast from my house, but you will have to wear my T-shirt. That's the condition, you know.
Well, you can take that home.
Actually, hang on 1 second. I'll have to swap guitars with you. I'll give Brad Frankie for a second because that'll match your T-shirt.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Here we go. Hold on. We are 114 in. That's the thumbnail. Awesome. 114.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Very good. So there you go. There's some of the toys I'll be playing with on the show. I'll be using my Maton 808 acoustic as well, of course, for Ice Cream Man and a few other bits and pieces. Maybe the starter full bug and a few things.
You got the builder in here. The builder's here.
What's that?
We got the builder here of your 5150.
Oh, brilliant.
Hey,
Mr. Neil Daly.
He snuck in. I didn't see him.
Yeah, I didn't see you in there either, Neil. Thanks for joining in. And just again, for anyone that doesn't know, actually, I should grab her. For anyone that doesn't know, Mr. Neil Daly is who built me this gorgeous 5150 replica from Daly Custom Designs. So, yeah, if there's anything you need, please get in touch with Neil. And, the results speak for themselves, and this thing is amazing. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, brother.
Neil, I plugged it in to my main Marshall for about a minute less, and it sounds phenomenal. So, yeah, well done.
Wow.
It feels amazing.
And it's got a really nice weight to it too, doesn't it? It's lighter than you expected, right?
When Hos gave it to me, when he handed it to
Actually,
me,
you should have it back. You don't want that one.
when he handed it to me, I was like, oh my God, it was like such a usable weight. It's perfect. It's not heavy at all. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really balanced. Like it's not neck heavy or body heavy either.
Yeah. With this headstock, I imagine that the guitar would want to do that all the time, like Firebirds do.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
But, it doesn't. It just seems to sit absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it's really balanced.
And the frets feel great. The neck feels great. It's it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Neil. Much appreciated. It's gorgeous.
Well, and what I think tops it off, though, you know, obviously you could have put any Floyd Rose in there and it would have been okay, would have been acceptable. The fact, though, that he went and got a period piece Floyd Rose.
Yeah, I've got to say, massive props to that, to Neil for that too. Finding like a period correct 1984 Floyd Rose was really just such a beautiful surprise and an amazing cherry on top. And it's amazing. It's amazing. And then he spoke with Sean at Pariah Pickups, and Sean did a specially relict Pasadena Black. So it would look sort of, period correct as well. So, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
It actually is like, it's something that you can hang on your wall, but you actually want to pick it up and play.
But you want to keep playing it. Yeah.
But it's like a piece of art as well. So it actually looks the full deal.
Yeah.
So Brad, is that the first time, Brad, that you've seen a reproduction 5150? That
yes.
Okay.
Here in Australia,
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. And the neck is sensational.
Yeah.
And that, for me, it's always about the neck on the guitar, how it feels.
Yeah.
And then balance, how it's balanced out, and it's actually really, really beautiful. The weight, man,
so intuitive, isn't it? It just feels feels like home as soon as you pick it up. Yeah,
it's fantastic, Neil. So well done.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear Hos playing it actually, and the gig's going to be sensational. So it's spanky, like it's not even plugged in. It rings.
So what's the body? Is it basswood body?
I believe so. Yeah, Neil will be able to answer that in the chat, but I believe it is, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gorgeous. And Brad's right. It's got this really vibrant, natural acoustic kind of ring to it, not plugged in. And all my favorite guitars ever since I was a teenager, I think, were loud when not plugged in. You could sit on the couch watching TV or something and they would kind of have this, they'd really speak, and I've had some guitars where the pickups really got to do all the heavy lifting because it doesn't really have any natural volume of its own. In fact, I used to have a Les Paul that was really quiet, not plugged in, really, really quiet. And it sounded good plugged in, but again, I think that was because the pickups were doing the heavy lifting, Yeah,
I've always gravitated to guitars and guitar shops when they're hanging on the wall, just. You go past, and if it's got natural resonance and tone, I usually pick it up and want to play it. If they sound a bit dead, I normally just skip it. I should try them, but I don't need any more guitars. I need one of these, though, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, you can't go wrong with the 5150, especially, from that album, from that era, I should say, from the Live Without a Net era is just, we've done a show, haven't we, guys? A couple of shows, and we've spoken about it, and we're probably going to do more shows, Hos and Brad, on and around that era because it's just so important to us, especially when some information and some new material might get released up and around that period. We're all confident that stuff will. It's just an iconic guitar. It's for me, guys, if I had to pick one, the toss-up will be between the 5150 and the gold Musicman. But I'm the 5150 by nose. 5150 by nose, guys. Yep.
And I've spoken to you guys about this before too, but for me, one of the first time I ever saw Eddie Van Halen playing live, probably like a lot of us, was the Live Without a Net concert. And I just wore that VHS tape completely out. And so that's why that guitar, particularly for me, I like all of them, but that one is the one that's burned into my brain, you know. And probably just by association, you know. I mean, that was also.
There you go, Andrew.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Andrew's
oh.
too.
There's the next thumbnail. Put your head in between them, bro. There you go.
120, 121. Oh my gosh.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Oh,
Love it.
Actually, these are really similar in weight.
Let me feel.
really?
Oh, he's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me swap hands. I would say this one is slightly heavier, but not a lot, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
The necks are meant to be feather based. Yeah, anyway. So the neck on this one feels sensational.
Yeah, it's beautiful neck.
And that's one interesting thing too, isn't it, for Van Halen fans? No one gives you any grief if you pick one guitar over another. It's almost acknowledged, you know, that we do have a favorite, you know, if it's the Bumblebee or the Musicman, you know, or one of the Wolfgangs. No one's going to give you any grief. It's like, okay, you know, it's a respected opinion. So well done, Van Halen fans.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And if you want to, I mean, we don't have to today, but if you've got some photos there too, Andrew, of the actual amp side of things,
yeah,
people might like to have a little bit of a squeeze at that, perhaps.
I think maybe
cool. I'll fire them up,
yeah,
and then
right.
I'll get you to.
The next show, Andrew, we're going to do. We're going to announce what we're going to be doing, and it's going to be pretty much going through this rig. So it's in. I think it's good we show all this stuff now, so the next show is just a run through rather than
having to deep dive too much. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so just hold on, guys. I'll just tear that up.
So I guess maybe if you've got the photo of the amp heads there, that might be a good way to start.
Just hold on, brother.
Sure, man.
I'm gonna go. Where are we? Blind as a bat. Share screen. Share screen. And we got to go to.
So while you're doing that, Andrew, I'll ask John's question. He says in the chat there, what's the difference in the necks that we swapped over? Well, as you would remember, John, one of the things Neil did to the original neck was that the fretboard was kind of marked and relict, and this one's kind of clean. And then, of course, in transport, the headstock on the other one unfortunately got cracked in the exact same spot that Eddie's got cracked, and so we fixed that. And it's as good as new. It was just that we thought it might be good to have a spare neck, which, you know, I agree it is. But I think, and Neil, you might be able to answer this better for John, that maybe you sourced those two necks from slightly different places, but they're very, very similar. They've got, you know, they kind of feel and sound really, really close. So really, at the end of the day, it was just that I thought that because Neil graciously sent me out this second neck, put it on and see how it goes, you know, and it's great. I love it. So they're both awesome. I think now that this is on, I'll probably just leave well enough alone and leave it on rather than swap back to the other one again.
Okay.
And the other one can be a backup neck.
Awesome. Hey, John Conklin. We got John Conklin in the chat. G'day, brother.
John, how you doing, brother?
Another Van Halen nuts. So from Fruitcake Tony's show. If you guys haven't subscribed, if anyone's watching the replay, go and check out Fruitcake Tony and his crew. Subscribe to Tony's show. He does a pick show and he does a weekly Van Halen show. And tell him that the 5150s sent you over there.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to go through. I can't pick the picks, so we're just going to go through them as they are when I downloaded them. So you can just talk about them as I go through and just tell me when you've finished talking about them, Hos, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, may as well leave this one up and start there. This is the Layla Splitter that I'm using, and that's taking the post Marshall head signal and then splitting it into two So I can go into like a small Mackie VLZ mixing desk, which is where I'm going to run the Eventide H3000 and the Lexicon reverb and delay in full wet mode. But then on the desk, I can wind in the amount of dry, even like I can even just fiddle with it on stage. If I need more dry because of the room acoustics, I can just grab one of the knobs on the desk and just turn up the dry.
Wow.
So it means it gives me the flexibility of not having to commit to how much delay level and reverb level on the gig. You know, at soundcheck, I can just really, really easily tweak it. So really all that's doing is splitting the signal into two so I can run both dry into the desk, but then also send the other one to effects.
Awesome.
So that's that guy. And okay, so that head on top is a Sir SL68. The badge has come off, which is why it doesn't say Sir on it, but that's what it is. And that's what I'm using for the main tone. So it's that head completely dimed, except for the bass control is at about 12 o'clock instead of dimed. And then out of that, the head on the bottom is going to be running. I'm just going to use that's actually Waz's head. That's Waz's personal Marshall that I stole from him. No, he has lent me at the moment. And I'll probably end up using that on the show just as a power amp for one of the wet sides. And then
is that a tube expander up there? Is this a tube expander?
That is the Boss tube amp expander that I'm using really just so that because I've got the Sir SL68 dimed, then that loads down the sound. And then so I'm coming, I go the Sir into that, then out of the speaker output of the tube amp expander into a Voodoo Labs cab tone, which is bringing it down to line level. The reason some people might think, well, doesn't the tube amp expander do that? It does. The only issue is because it runs through some digital processing, if I run that straight into my cabinet and then to my wet effects, I do get some phasing, which I don't want. So the way I'm doing it is slightly more complicated, but it gets rid of the phasing problem. So out of the tube amp expander into the cab tone, and then the cab tone goes into that Layla Splitter box that you just had up, and then that goes into the mixing desk, dry wet.
Can I just want to do a bit of homework here. Can some of the mods, when we get some of these weirdo people in here, I think this is the second week in a row, can you just ban that user, please? Whoever's a mod, you should have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is a very rudimentary photo of my pedal board. That'll be the stuff that runs into the front end of the Plexi. So you can see in the top right-hand corner, you've got the Voodoo Labs cab tone. So that's what I was talking about just before. Although that'll probably be behind one of the amps. And then I've got the Clinch Effects EP Pre, which is basically a remake of the preamp section of the Echoplex. So I'm using that, and actually Clinch Effects are an Australian company. They're based in Brisbane, I think. And that thing just sounds awesome. So I'm using that really just as a little bit of extra juice and a tiny bit of level and mid-range into the front of the Plexi. That Strymon El Capistan is what I'm using for two things. One is just a short kind of 300 millisecond delay in the front of the amp, the same way that Ed used to run his Echoplex unit, especially for that first album stuff, for solos and whatnot. And it's also what I use to do the end of Eruption.
Oh,
so that Strymon El Capistan perfectly has the knobs that you need to do that end of Eruption sound. Which is basically a tape delay, but that Strymon sounds awesome, and so that's great. Then I've got the obligatory MXR Script Phase 90. That's actually a pretty new addition for me, the Script one, because on the Melbourne Guitar Show, I used the one that I've had for years. I've probably had it for 20 years, and it's just one of the regular MXR Phase 90s, but it sounds great, and it was no problem using it on that. And in fact, we talked about this on the last show. I'm going to do a giveaway of that MXR Phase 90 that I used on the Melbourne Guitar Show. So I'm trying to think of something clever and sneaky that I can, maybe a question that I can ask or whatever, and whoever gets that will win the my MXR Phase 90. And maybe we could do that announcement of the giveaway when we go into the studio and do the rig thing.
100%.
Great. MXR flanger, of course, for Unchained and other bits and pieces, Atomic Punk and some other stuff. And then you can see I've got a Mxr Graphic EQ that I'm really just using the same way that Eddie used his 10-band EQ in the front of the plexi. So really all of this stuff that you're looking at now on the pedal board, except for the cab tone, is running into the front end of the plexi.
Wow.
And it's all working great. The EQ, I've got to tell you that for anyone that hasn't dimed a plexi and then also pushed an EQ in the front, that is the absolute secret to that slightly higher gain Eddie Van Halen sound. In fact, Brad, you and I were talking a few weeks back about how people talk about how the sound of Eddie's plexi changed over all the records, and how Van Halen 1 was like pretty saturated and high gain. And then, you get to like, say, Diverdown or 1984, and it sounds a bit less gain, So a lot of people talk about, oh, well, maybe he was using different pickups, or his plexi was starting to die, which is why he stopped using it. My belief, and I'm not got anything to base this on, but from everything I've seen and read and photos of his rigs over the years, I think that MXR in the front, when you boost the mid-range and boost the level a bit, completely saturates the plexi like the early records. And I think he just stopped using the EQ in the front. And so those later records were just the plexi. And I feel
perfect sense.
Yeah. And when I kick that the EQ in and out, and in fact, when we do the sound demonstration, why don't I do that and people can hear it for themselves? Yeah. And I'll play something off 1984, and then I'll play something from Van Halen 1, and the only difference will be that EQ pedal. And I think you'll see it sounds very close to me that might be one of the only differences in the amount of gain.
So can I ask a question, Hos? With your EQ, I can't see it. Maybe Andrew can zoom in a bit on the EQ itself.
Presently, what you're looking at is not my settings, though.
All right.
Yeah.
So how would you have that scooped up a little bit in that mid-range?
So apparently what Ed did, which I've tried and works great, is you leave the bass frequencies and the treble frequencies where they are, or if anything, cut them a little.
Yeah, drop them out a bit.
Yeah. You basically, people always talk about the smiley curve for Graphic EQ for like stereos that sounds good. You do the opposite. Yeah, so it becomes a mountain.
Small little mountain. And
and then also there's a level on it as well. Yeah. So what I do is I give it a mountain curve and boost a little bit of level.
Yeah. So only a few dB or something.
Yeah, doesn't need to be much. And of course, it's one of those things that if you were trying it out with your own plexi, you just do it to taste because you're of the way your amp is. You might need another couple of dB, but you're sort of using your ear in the end. And that's the that's the Mackie VLZ desk that I'm using, basically, so that I can separately control in the left and right quad boxes. I'll have separate controls for the amount of dry and the amount of reverb, the amount of delay, and the amount of harmonizing, all on separate knobs. So depending on how the corner hotel sounds and how the room sounds. For example, I'll obviously be making all these sounds in my home studio in a perfect dry environment. But when we get to the show, I might say, look, everything's great, but the reverb's just too much in this room. So then I can just grab one of those knobs and just turn the reverb down and not change anything else.
Wow.
So, it might seem overly complicated to involve a mixing desk, but really for a wet, dry, wet, I think to get the most out of it, you want that flexibility. Because I would hate to have programmed in the lexicon the amount of reverbs and then have to start getting into menus and pushing buttons at the sound check. That's just going to bore the hell out of me. So that I can just turn the reverb only down with one knob is perfect.
So that makes a lot of sense for the sound man and for the gig musician. So you just go there, you set up, you play, and you just adjust without having to go back to the banks. That makes perfect sense. And dial in, not get Wi-Fi, because some of this stuff is Bluetoothed as well. So it's just a pain in the neck, isn't it, if it doesn't work? Whereas this.
Exactly. So it seems like more too complicated on the face of it, but actually what I'm trying to do is make the process on the night really, really simple. And really all you're doing is replicating live what you would do in a recording studio. You know, if you're listening back to the track and there's too much reverb, you just turn down the reverb, you know.
So I've got a question to ask you guys, because you guys gig in front of bigger audiences. So you know, when you're doing your sound check before the audience comes in, are you doing any tweaking? Is your sound guy tweaking because of the density of the venue, because you've got a couple of hundred people in there jammed in? So is that something that you worry about being a guitar player, or is that just something that the sound man's going to worry about?
Yeah, look, you can't really worry about that too much as a guitar player. That will be up to whoever's doing front of house for sure, because yes, the room sound will definitely change. At sound check, there'll be no one in it. And then, you know, come to the gig, we're going to have anywhere between probably, you know, 400 and 800 people, depending. So, you know, that'll make a huge difference to the sound. But yeah, so Wazza will take care of all of that. But for me, this is really... doing it this way means that on stage I can have the guitar sound exactly how I want, and it also means that if Wazza's saying, man, you're wet, dry, wet, I'm just swimming in reverb out here, I don't want to have to go and change my patches inside the lexicon. You know, I want to have that set and forget. And then, but with this way, I can just grab the channel that the reverb's on and just turn that down, and then the harmonizer and the delay and everything else stay exactly the same.
Wow, that makes perfect sense. Awesome, bro. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
That's okay. And then that'll be the box that'll be mic'd up for the dry in the center.
With the vintage 30s.
Greenback 25s, actually.
Greenback 25s. Cool.
Low wattage. I mean, so the thing also that it might be worth mentioning, having the 6 quad boxes on my side of the stage is not for volume at all. It's really just for, gives me the wet, dry, wet for one thing, but also it's for spread around the stage so that I don't have to do things like get extra guitar put in my fallback, because I want to keep that clean for vocals and stuff, you know. There's nothing worse than when your fallback is just overloaded with bass guitar and your own guitar, and then the whole thing just becomes a mush, you know. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Les.
Yeah. Good on you, brother. And then there is the rack component of the rig. Down the bottom, most people will know the Eventide H3000. So that used to be in my studio, which obviously I've just pulled out to use it in my guitar rig. And wow. And then above that is the blue and black unit. That's the lexicon. So that's doing all the stereo reverbs and delays. And then so the lexicon will be in one stereo channel of the desk, and then the Eventide, of course, will be in its own stereo channel of the desk, so I can control the harmonizing and the wet delays and stuff separately. And on top there is actually one of Wazza's old vintage pieces of gear, which the diehards will know as a Furman EQ. And a lot of guitarists in the 80s were using a Furman in the front end, even in the front end of other rack stuff like the ADA MP1 preamp, the Marshall JMP1 preamp. There's a Dimebag used to use that as well in the front end of his amps, apparently. And the reason that it's there in that photo is just because it happened to be sitting there when I took it, but also I'm going to play with the idea of using it instead of the Mxr 10-band graphic pedal, because those Furmans apparently used to have just like a really unique, warm kind of vintage sound. And I just feel like if Ed had had one of those in 1978, he probably would have tried one of those in the front end of the Plexi. So I might actually use that in front of the Plexi instead of the Mxr. We'll see.
Okay, all right. Well, that's something that Van Halen nuts would love to hear your opinion on between that and the 10-band equalizer. Yeah. Keep us in touch with
I'll definitely let you know. And that's really about
that's
it.
right? Yep.
It seems complicated looking at separate photos and hearing me talk for 5 minutes on each thing, but I think when Brad and I do the episode where we've got the whole thing wired up and you can hear it, and I'll sort of take everyone through it simply, I think it'll make a lot more sense, and it'll be simpler that way, because it's fundamentally it is simple. It just seems complicated in the routing, you know.
Well, I certainly look forward to that. So whether or not we do that the Saturday coming or the Saturday after that, because we've got the Sunday show on the 19th, which is our Christmas show, guys, which we're going to stream, all day basically. So I'll leave that up to Brad and you, Hos, to determine whether we do that on this Saturday coming. I'm free. I'm available. I'm sure everyone else in the chat is. If everyone subscribes to your Instagram and Brad's Instagram, and if they subscribe to the channel, they'll keep updates with us on what day is going to suit, because I can't wait. I'm and Brad, I know that. Look at Brad. Look, he's got that big grin on his face.
Andrew, I'm feeling very nice with Hos. He's got all this gear and all this stuff, and I've got a few pedals and 2 Marshall heads.
Brother, you do pretty good. Don't you bloody start playing that game here.
And let's not forget, I did still have to come to your place to do the podcast. So if that makes you feel any better,
well, that's it. That makes me feel a tiny bit better.
Brilliant.
Look, I certainly look forward to it. I'm like everybody else, and we've been blessed with a couple of cool people hanging out with us. In fact, everyone that hangs out with us is pretty cool, But to have your guitar builder join us, Neil Daly, especially, is always a treat, because I know by looking at your smile and just picking up the stuff that Brad was saying about the guitar live. That's one thing as guitar players and as musicians, we listen and we look at the reaction of people, and that's always going to be the clue, whether or not something is genuine, if it's the real deal. And certainly you guys have spoken about that, those little bits and pieces that make that guitar up, the bridge and that pickup, certainly, Hos. It's put it in another league.
Yeah, look, really for me, like I said, it's just such a wonderful, gorgeous thing that Neil had managed to find a 1984 Floyd, because like you said, Andrew, you could use a modern Floyd and it would work fine, and I'm sure it would sound fine. But even just me psychologically knowing that the Floyd on it is from the 80s gives it that little fairy dust, Yeah.
And the fairy dust is what counts.
It is. Well, it is when you're nerding out like the way we all are right now. So yeah, it is the fairy dust that counts for sure. Yeah.
So guys, when we go to the next episode, when we do the rig rundown and stuff, we're not going to go into as much deep dive with what we've done today. I think that's the reason we did today, like we have.
Yeah.
So that the next episode is more about the sounds,
listening to it. Yeah.
And we can refer back to, if anyone wants to actually get a rig rundown, they can refer back to this episode.
And the other thing that I'll do when we do the rig rundown, guys, is I'll have maybe a drawn like a routing diagram that you can put up on the screen. And so anyone on the replay, if they want to really kind of nerd out about how everything's wired together, they can just pause it on that photo and kind of have a look at the routing that way. I think that'll be what I mean, Andrew? Yeah.
Yeah. That would be brilliant. So, this is, we're taking Van Halen geekness to another level, guys, on the 5150 show. You guys have heard it here first. So, Hos and Brad, they're going to provide you with all the tech specs that you guys need. That's going to, I can see Keith Campbell already licking his lips. He's going to,
yeah.
Wow.
So I'll have that, and that way, people can just pause it on the replay and look at study the routing and the sort of schematic of it as much as they like. So I think that's a good way to do that.
Bro, you guys have inspired me. I've been inspired over the last couple of weeks. I've been inspired by the Beatles with the Get Back session. You know, it's just drawn me further and further into the love that I have for music, and hanging out with Hos and Brad and Wazza, talking about this deep dive into Van Halen tones, a big part of our lives. Jeepers, you never get sick of it, do you? You think you've got it all, you think you know it all, and you just get, and they just pull you back. They just pull you back in.
That's right. That's right. And I have to say, to your point, Andrew, about the Beatles Get Back thing, watching all of that, I mean, geez, that is just so inspiring. I mean, I've always loved the Beatles, like we all have, but getting that peek behind the curtain of their creativity and like, you know, some reviews and a lot of people online have been like, it's too long and it's too this and it's too that. But for me, if you had have chopped out that, you're actually getting rid of the magic of the process. You know, I think that's a really important part of it. And, you know, who cares? Because we all love it. I mean, I could have watched it for twice as long, you know.
I could have.
This is the reason why Peter Jackson deserves to do the film, because he's the fan. He doesn't give a shit. He hasn't done this for Noddy down the road who only knows I want to hold your hand. He's done for Hos. He's done it for Brad. He's done it for everyone in our chat. He's done it for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think, and also with what the world's been going through with COVID and the lockdowns and restrictions, to come out of that with a bit more of a positive vibe and then be blessed with this Beatles special that goes for 8 hours or whatever is just awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're ranking the tracks tomorrow, guys, on Let It Be. Brad's going to tune in tomorrow because Brad's going to do an introduction on songwriting and how the Beatles program has inspired him from his perspective, being our resident songwriter as well. So he's going to draw out a couple of connections there that I think people are going to be interested in. So hang out with us. Hos, as usual, brother, you know that you have a permanent invitation to any of the Sunday shows that we do. I'm going to pass it on to you two guys to sign off the 5150 show. I'm just going to say that you guys just about, I'm just so happy that you guys have finally got together and
and I've got my t-shirt.
Finally got together and doing something.
Yours is coming.
Yeah.
Christmas present.
And for everyone in the chat, Andrew had no idea that I was going to just turn up to Brad's place today to do this. So we surprised him in the green room. But look, it's been a pleasure as always. Deep diving like this and nerding out's always fun. I'd like to give, again, a special shout out to Neil Daly for building the guitar from Daly Custom Designs. Of course, Warwick Newman, our very special guest, who works on my amps and Brad's amps from Tone Revival Engineering here in Melbourne. So for any Melbourne rock and rollers, he is the absolute man for tweaking your amps and getting them sounding like honey, you know. And also, of course, Joe Occhipinti at Guitar House for working on all of these guitars for me. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. Good stuff. And thanks to everyone joining us. Should we do a roll call, Andrew?
Yeah, brother. You guys have got the computer there, so do a shout out to everybody.
Right. We're both in the same room.
Yeah. All right. So first off the cab off the rank is my mother, Ellen Voroshin. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome.
Who else we got there?
We got Helene O'Hara.
Yeah.
Thank you, Helene.
And Keith Campbell. So thanks for joining us. I'll have to
scroll up
backwards.
Kelly.
Yeah. Who else have we got here?
Hey, don't forget Nightbot.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got so Music Therapy Laz.
Mark Tanner.
Yep, Mark Tanner.
Leo, thank you, Leo.
Yep. Where else? So we're going backwards a long way here, guys.
We are indeed. Music Therapy Laz, thanks for joining in, brother.
Hobo Roady.
Yeah.
John Conklin.
Hey, John.
Thank you very much for joining us. We did say Mark Tanner.
Yeah.
John ZD351, our brother in Melbourne, who's roadie, and he's going to pick up the tab that I'm going to pass to him, that Andrew's passed on to me.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, John, on a personal note, for all your support this year with my music and becoming one of my super fans, mate. So I appreciate that more than I can put in words. Ben Tom.
Ben, Tom, you're a legend. Thank you, Tom. Neil Daly, of course, we already mentioned.
Yeah. What else we got here? There's a ton of comments here, so we're going back.
We're going way back, but that's all right.
If we miss you guys, we apologize. This is a team effort, by the way.
Yeah.
You said Joe.
I think the fact there's two of us doing it is slowing us down. Christopher, Live Sour. Thank you, Christopher.
All right, you go. Tell me.
Nelson Rodriguez. That's right. You scroll, I'll talk. We can streamline this.
Yeah.
Oven Gont. Thank you, mate. Christine Taylor, of course. The wonderful Christine. Thanks for joining in.
Some dude called the 5150 show.
And B and Barbara. Excellent, but no. Helen Winter.
Oh, you said Helen.
Yeah.
Look, guys.
I think that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah,
We're coming to the end of it.
Well, keep scrolling back. There's more.
There could be some right from the beginning of the show that have dropped out. So if we've missed you, thank you so much.
Yeah, and Nerd Halen, Fruitcake Tony.
Fruitcake Tony, of course. Tony dropped in. Good to see you, brother.
So, guys, Michael Richardson, thank you so much. And that's about it, guys, that we can see. Ben, Tom. I'm just scrolling back fast.
Yeah.
So thanks, guys. And, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Press the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up for today. We've Hos has put a lot of effort into today, and he's come over to my place. It's great to, and thanks for coming over, buddy. It's great to finally get you here.
Yeah, no, it happened by default, not by design. But as all good things in the universe do, it ended up being perfect, and it was awesome being able to do it side by side with Brad and bring all my guitars over and have a listen to his Marshalls.
Yeah. So I got a taste of rating for Hos today. Bringing all his guitars.
Bringing my guitars out of the car. That's right. So that's phase one, and we're going to move to phase two.
Yeah. And
so Brad's passed the audition, has he?
Yeah.
So once we finish, I'm going to get a snapshot of all the guitars lined up against my Marshalls for the Instagrams. So we encourage you to go give us a like and a love and all that stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah, flick me a couple of those pics too, bro, and I'll put them on our community page here for the channel as well. I'd love to do that. Look, it's been a pleasure for myself, guys, hanging out with you guys, going through this stuff. I'm envious that you guys are going to spend a couple of hours together. Oh my gosh, you guys are going to have some fun, I know. Keep out of trouble is the only advice I'm going to give you.
Yeah.
We're right.
Yeah. Keep out of trouble. I'm going to say join us tomorrow on the Sunday show with the Rock Professor as we go through on the Let It Be album. I'm looking forward to it. And
that'd be great. Yeah.
And a shout out to our good friend Warren, who's not in the chat, who hasn't been in here for a while. Warm prayers and everything, mate. Speedy recovery, and we can't wait to see you in the chat again.
Yep.
Okay, we're out of here, guys.
All right, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, guys, I've tried to... wrong one.